Welcome to the third episode of Visual Language and Grammar. In part 3, we're going to be making compositions with lines, exploring distribution of space, implied scale and structure, and grouping through the principle of similarity. The exercises will be performed on a 150mm square, which has been subdivided into 5mm units both horizontally and vertically. In this first exercise, we will be using 9 vertical lines. 3 will be 5mm wide, 3 will be 10mm wide, and 3 will be 15mm wide. All must measure 150mm high and align at the top and bottom of the square. Now rearrange the lines into a random order. You don't need to overly plan this aspect. Random really is the aim. The design looks like a barcode, and it's not so easy to distinguish the different thickness lines from one another. For example, how easy is it to see all the medium thickness lines? How could we visually reunite the thin lines together? How could we group all the medium lines together and see all the thick lines as belonging together? And how could we do this without moving the lines back together? One way is to cut each set of 3 lines to the same height, but distinguish each set by making them different heights from one another. This idea is known as the principle of similarity and is part of Gestalt theory. The eye detects patterns and makes connections. It sees similar objects as belonging together. This is an important principle for designers, as it is their job to make these connections and group visual and information components together. By doing so, it helps the viewer understand what they're looking at. I'd like to analyse the proportions of the 3 different size blocks. Although they are different heights and thicknesses, they are related by the number of 5mm square units they are constructed from. The thin line is 1 5mm unit wide by 24 units high. The medium-sized block is constructed from 2 5mm units in width by 12 units high. 2 by 12 is 24 units, the same as the first line. The thick block is comprised of 3 5mm units wide by 8. 3 times 8 is 24 units, the same as the previous 2. I like this sense of unity and logic underpinning the design. It doesn't always work, and sometimes visually intuitive judgments have to be made, but logic is a reasonable starting point. The next set of compositions will be considering horizontal, vertical and angle designs. Lines can appear to look thicker when lying down horizontally. This design has 6 lines, 2 5mm thick, 2 10mm thick and 2 15mm thick, and they vary in width. A sense of balance is gained by 2 thick lines bleeding on from the left and the 2 thin lines bleeding on from the right. The 2 medium lines are interlocked with the thin lines. Also consider the visual impact of the resulting white space. The term bleed means that a component starts from the edge. Components that bleed on can provide visual tension or dynamic to the design. This vertical design exploits contrast. Contrast in the thickness of components and contrast in height. Contrast is a great tool for designers. It's a way of getting noticed. We notice big contrasts more than subtle ones. Think about this when using all design components, including type. This design has a walking 1, 2, 3 approach. Because of the contrast in scale, the components seem to be walking back and forth in space. There is 1 thick component, 2 medium and 3 thin. This design combines horizontal and vertical lines of different thickness. You can see how abstract designs such as Scottish tartan are derived, the beginnings of marks that have identity. Designs that exploit the angle tend to look dynamic. The angle in this design is 45 degrees. This type of design was prevalent in the Russian constructivism, Dutch de Stijl and German Bauhaus movements. Abstract components can be used to express concrete concepts such as rhythm. or bouncing up and down. It's time for me to jet off. Bye!